The cub shivered as if the heat and cold of the savanna were waging war against its tiny body. Its fur, damp and tangled, clung to delicate limbs, and each shallow breath seemed to demand more strength than it possessed. The human's hands moved slowly, deliberately, tracing the small contours of the cub's frame without pressure, careful not to startle what little life remained. A bead of sweat traced down the rescuer's temple, unnoticed in the focus of this fragile moment, where every breath felt like a choice between despair and survival. Nearby, the grasses swayed lazily, carrying the scent of earth and sun, mingling with the faint musk of the cub. Its tiny ears flicked toward the rustling, alert despite weakness, and a soft whine escaped as a shiver passed through its body. The human murmured softly, "You're almost there," and the sound seemed to settle around them like a protective cloak, a tether of calm in the vast, indifferent heat. With each careful movement, the cub's small body grew less rigid, its limbs stretching slightly as if testing the embrace of life once more. Time slowed. The wind whispered across the plains, lifting dust and carrying distant cries of other wildlife that the cub could no longer respond to. Its paws twitched with uncertain energy, kneading against the human's palm, seeking warmth and stability. The golden horizon seemed to shimmer, a silent observer to this delicate negotiation between mortality and persistence. Tiny eyes opened again, flickering toward the face above, catching light that seemed almost too brilliant, and yet grounding the creature in the presence of someone who would not let it fall. Every inhale and exhale became a rhythm of trust. The cub's small chest rose with uneven effort, its head rolling faintly against the supportive hands. Dust and sweat mixed on its fur, but under the careful, measured touch of the human, there was no panic, only a slow, deliberate insistence that this life mattered. In this quiet exchange, strength began to return in increments, measured in the subtle flicker of eyelids and the minuscule flex of tiny paws. The savanna stretched endlessly around them, indifferent and golden, yet for a moment, it held still. The cub, trembling but alive, nestled against the human, a fragile heartbeat in a world that demanded so much. Each breath it drew was a small triumph, each flick of its ears a delicate assertion of survival. Slowly, ever so slowly, the tremors subsided, replaced by tentative warmth and trust. For the first time, the cub's gaze held a fleeting calm, a whisper of life's stubborn persistence. And as the sun climbed higher, casting long, shimmering rays across the tall grasses, the bond remained unspoken, quiet, yet profoundly present, a fragile hope nurtured in the heart of the savanna. The cub pressed closer, its tiny body seeking warmth, each shiver a reminder of its fragility in the sprawling savanna. Its faint whimpers mingled with the rustle of tall grasses, carried by the wind like soft echoes that barely reached the horizon. The rescuer's eyes followed the faint paw prints scattered across the dirt, marks too small and uneven to be anything but maternal, leading toward an invisible presence somewhere beyond sight. The absence of the lioness pressed against them, a quiet tension that lingered heavier than the midday sun. The wind shifted, brushing against the human's face and carrying with it the scent of dry earth and distant life. The cub's ears twitched instinctively at every subtle sound, the snap of a twig, the flutter of wings, but no familiar rustle or deep growl answered. The human paused, holding the small creature close, eyes scanning the undulating plains, heart aware of the delicate line they walked between hope and danger. Even in the safety of human arms, the cub's muscles remained tense, a tiny vessel of vulnerability that reflected the uncertainty surrounding them. Softly, the rescuer whispered, "They're out there, she's close," but the words seemed fragile, fragile as the cub itself. Silence returned, unbroken except for the distant hum of insects and the occasional bird call, a reminder of the world that continued its indifferent rhythm. Each step forward was measured, careful, as if the earth itself demanded reverence for the life they carried. Shadows began to stretch across the plains, long and slow, draping over the cub's small frame, emphasizing the contrast between its vulnerability and the vast wilderness around them. The human's gaze drifted to the horizon, searching for any sign of the mother, the subtle flicker of movement that might signal reunion. The cub's tiny legs flexed, pressing into their palms, a silent plea that life persist. Every sway of the grasses, every whisper of wind, carried potential danger and hope intertwined. They moved with deliberate patience, attuned to the rhythms of the savanna, understanding that any abrupt motion could fracture the fragile balance they were nurturing. As evening softened the light, the cub's breathing grew steadier, but the tension lingered like a shadow over the golden grasses. The rescuers remained alert, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over them, knowing that life in the wild demanded courage and restraint in equal measure. In that quiet stretch of sun-drenched plains, the tiny cub remained a fragile promise, a heartbeat tethered to both human care and the unseen presence of its mother somewhere just beyond reach, waiting to bridge the gap between fear and reunion. The cub's small chest rose with more certainty now, each breath a subtle declaration that life had not abandoned it entirely. Tiny paws pressed against the human's hand with gentle insistence, no longer spasms of fear but tentative gestures of comfort. Its head tilted, eyes glimmering with the cautious light of recognition, tracing the outlines of the face above it as if memorizing the shape of care. The warmth it received seeped slowly into its body, dissolving the last remnants of icy shock and replacing them with fragile, growing trust. Beyond the immediate circle of safety, the tall grasses whispered in uneven rhythm, and the human senses sharpened to every sound. The rustle of leaves, slight and deliberate, held the unmistakable cadence of watchful attention. It was not wind, not a wandering creature. It was her, the mother, cloaked in shadow yet present, a careful observer waiting for the right moment. Every subtle movement of the cub sent echoes through the quiet space, and though the mother remained unseen, her attention was palpable, an invisible tether connecting them all. The cub responded to the gentle pressure of human hands, nuzzling softly, blinking slowly as if learning that these moments could be safe. A faint, almost imperceptible rumble escaped from its throat, a whisper of comfort in the midst of uncertainty. The human's voice, soft and deliberate, offered reassurance. "It's okay, we'll keep you safe." The cub relaxed, limbs loosening, tail curling slightly, yet instinct remained, the edge of caution never fully surrendered. The savanna itself seemed to hold its breath, a canvas of golden grasses and distant horizons stretching endlessly, punctuated by the hum of insects and the occasional bird call. Each sound became part of a larger rhythm, weaving life, observation, and instinct into a delicate equilibrium. The cub's fragile heartbeat merged into this greater pulse, a tiny spark within the vast wilderness. The rustle of grass sharpened again, a subtle signal, and the human sensed it more than saw it, a presence near enough to feel, yet distant enough to preserve the mother's caution. The tension in the air was neither threatening nor serene. It was the poised expectancy of a reunion, unpredictable and alive. For the first time, the cub seemed aware not only of safety but of the possibility of return, of the invisible bond that lingered in the space between human care and wild instinct, waiting for the moment when mother and cub might meet again. The lioness moved with a quiet authority, each step deliberate, her body low and fluid over the uneven earth. Golden sunlight streaked across her tawny fur, illuminating the careful sway of muscles tuned to both power and caution. She paused at the edge of the clearing, eyes fixed on the cub cradled in human arms, a presence that was at once familiar and foreign. Her tail flicked once, then twice, small movements betraying the tension beneath a measured exterior. The cub stirred, lifting its head just enough to catch the outline of her form, a flicker of instinctual recognition passing through its tiny frame. The human remained still, chest rising slowly, hands gentle yet unwavering, allowing the lioness to gauge the situation on her terms. The cub pressed closer, yet the trust it had begun to build glimmered in hesitant movements, soft paws stretching, ears twitching, and a tentative blink that acknowledged the figure beyond the arms that had offered warmth and safety. The lioness advanced just a step, each movement precise, neither threatening nor abrupt, a deliberate negotiation between curiosity, caution, and the innate bond of parent and child. Softly the rescuer whispered, "She's letting it happen," words almost lost in the whispering wind. The air itself seemed to pause, holding breath and anticipation as mother and cub navigated the delicate line between fear and reunion. The lioness lowered her muzzle, a graceful bow of submission and recognition, hovering just above the cub without force, without command. The cub trembled, not from fright, but from the relief that flowed through its tiny body, a release as instinct and nurture aligned in the open savanna. Time stretched in measured heartbeats. The lioness' nose brushed lightly against the cub's fur, a feather-light contact that carried immense weight, reassurance, forgiveness, and the unspoken covenant of a mother returning without aggression. Every sense hummed, the warmth of fur, the faint scent of earth and sweat, the soft rustle of grasses around them, all merging into a quiet symphony of reconciliation. The cub shifted, leaning into the touch, eyes half closed, finding safety in both human hands and maternal presence. The wind carried scents and whispers across the plains, lifting dust and the faint tang of life beyond their small circle. In this suspended moment, power yielded to gentleness, instinct bowed to careful observation, and trust grew without demand. The lioness lingered, a sentinel of patience, allowing the cub to claim the space between abandonment and return. And as the sun dipped lower, casting long amber shadows across the tall grass, the fragile trio, mother, cub and human, remained in stillness, bound together not by force, but by the profound quiet of recognition and care. The lioness moved with quiet certainty, each step measured, muscles rippling beneath tawny fur, her gaze occasionally flicking toward the human as if offering a silent, reverent acknowledgement. The cub nestled close, tiny paws gripping instinctively, seeking warmth, reassurance, and the unspoken promise of safety. Their pace was slow, deliberate, attuned to one another and to the rhythms of the savanna, a dance of reunion that honored both the fragility of life and the strength of instinct. The human remained rooted in place, hands still, eyes tracing the duo as they disappeared into the undulating sea of golden grasses. The heat-hazed horizon swallowed them gradually, the soft rustle of dry stalks marking each careful step, each heartbeat of connection and release. No words were necessary, the air held the weight of everything unspoken. The cub's tremors, the mother's restraint, the fragile bridge of trust extended across species. The wind carried it all, lifting the faint scent of fur and earth, a whisper of what had transpired. Around them, the savanna resumed its indifferent rhythm. Birds called in scattered choruses, insects hummed beneath the sun's warm gaze, and shadows lengthened in soft streaks across the plains. Yet amidst this ordinary world, the human's chest carried the echo of something extraordinary. The memory of the cub's first moments of life reclaimed, of trust quietly offered and accepted, remained vivid, a delicate imprint of patience, courage and gentle care that could not be repeated but would endure in memory. The lioness and cub moved as one, bodies synchronized in instinctual harmony, navigating the tall grasses with cautious assurance. The cub's tiny steps matched the sway of the mother's stride, a subtle mirror of resilience, curiosity, and safety regained. Each movement seemed to celebrate life itself, a quiet testament to the bonds that could form without words, without force, in the raw openness of the wild. As the golden sun began its descent, slanting light across the savanna, the human finally exhaled, carrying a profound sense of awe and gratitude. The world continued around them, vast and indifferent, yet within it had occurred a moment of extraordinary gentleness, a fragile life restored, a mother reunited, and a silent, enduring acknowledgement that even in the harshest landscapes, the smallest acts of care could leave the deepest mark. The lioness and cub disappeared fully into the embrace of the plains, and in the human heart, the quiet weight of that trust lingered, a memory as enduring as the rhythm of the savanna itself.